Hey everybody, welcome back to the Harvest Insights channel. This is Elisa, and we are going to be talking today about using Claude to code open ends. Now, this is a project that I have been doing for a few years now, so I already am coming in with a code base, and also I'm just using Claude to see if I can speed up the process. I'm still coding it the old way. But I just want to walk you through the process because we did end up spinning up some agents, and you may have heard about that. It's not as difficult as it seems. So here we are. Claude actually made me this little infographic so we could very quickly go through the process. So think about training Claude like you're training a first-year analyst just out of college. So training Claude to code these open ends was a process. It has been probably a week-long process, and we're still going. So what you need to do is, I started by first uploading the codes and the coded data from last year. That was the first step. So I could train Claude in how to code and what exactly I was looking for. Before I even gave it new data, I asked it, do you have enough information? And it said, no, I do not. So I was able to fill in some blanks on codes that were not used as frequently so that it could understand what those codes actually meant. So I provided it with examples. Then we went through and I gave it some additional rules, which I normally would not have if we were coding it, hand coding or coding in Displayer. I told it to add a code 99, which is basically if Claude doesn't know how to code something, I just tell it, give it a 99, I'll go back and look at it, no problem, because I don't want it to just be spinning and trying to solve a problem when I could solve it way faster. So then I added this HR review flag, which is something I would normally be doing as we were coding, is just, hey, we need to flag and pass back to HR any issues that they need to respond to. So it actually did that, and I checked it because I wanted to make sure that it was catching it. So at that point, we were sort of just building what would be normally like a code frame or a code book. So this was taking an insane amount of time and tokens, which is basically the currency of Claude. So I wanted to figure out if we could speed it up. And so I worked with Claude going back and forth. Hey, how can we speed this up? What about making a code book? Ultimately, that's what we did. And I'll show you the code book. So this is what Claude created as a code book and provided to me in Word, which I then went through, read through, and made sure that I agreed with everything. I changed some of the scope and decision rules for some of these codes. I ended up working on this HR flag priority, although I report everything because, I just don't want to get in any trouble. And then I realized, oh my gosh, some of the codes or some of the open ends are in Spanish, so I taught it how to handle those. We talked about a decision process and what deliverable format. And then, of course, a change log. I'm notoriously not great at documenting things. Claude is. So I wanted to make sure that we had a change log because that code book is a living, breathing document that we are going to continue to change. At that point, I let Claude run another 500. It was still taking an insane amount of time. So I said, Claude, what can we do? It suggested we spin up some agents, which I think is a great way to have, it's almost like just having multiple analysts coding at the same time. But of course, you have to make sure that it's quality checked. So I asked Claude how it would quality check these. And it basically spun up, it wrote its own prompt to spin up these three agents that we're all going to code using the code book. And then it provides back the coded, this is kind of like what the codes look like. This is how the client likes things coded, 1, 2, 3, depending on sentiment. Anyway, so it had the agents coding, and then it would go back, double check. I could also double check. And we realized, the agents weren't as accurate as Claude was. So we had to then redo this whole process to teach the agents how to code. So we probably went through about 1,500 completes doing this. And like I said, it's been constant back and forth, back and forth. But when an agent fails, then, we can either get rid of that agent, try another agent, train that agent. So you are constantly working with Claude to go back and forth to determine the best way to solve your problems. So I've been super impressed with this process. However, it does take time. It takes an investment of tokens, and which is ultimately dollars that you're putting into Claude. And so you really need to be prepared that this is not, if you want to do things right and have them of the same quality as a human, then you have to be willing to invest the time in Claude. And so that's why I'm going to be starting a new agency to help companies either learn how to do this themselves or just bring us in to help you train the AI to do some of these monotonous tasks that you do all the time, but that you may not have time to invest in a tool like Claude to teach them how to do it. So that's my exciting news, and there'll be more on that to come. But for now, I hope that is helpful for everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.